So then we send 400 billion to these counties. And remember, it's borrowed money. Then the question is, what do they do when that money gets to the counties? Remember, the whole point of devolution is to serve people, to bring services, to bring a development. Our counties are spending more money on themselves than they spend actually providing services. Professor Kivuta Kibwana is here, so I'll be happy to hear, his take on it. But I'm gonna tell you this. If you take 2022-2023 tax year, every county in our republic has on average 47 MCAs. These 47 MCAs across the country are taking about 10% of the entire budget of each county. So take your average county, you're gonna have on average 47 MCAs. Those 47 MCAs eat up 10% of the budget. Where is the fairness? How is it that we allow 47 people to eat up 10% of the budget when you're talking about some of the most, some of these counties are really poor. So many of these places, the rest of the money that's left is either stolen by these leaders. Every day you're hearing of, a former governor who's being tried, and eventually none of these people end up, there's no justice. People get arrested, they have cases, and they're not, look at Nairobi, right? Evans Kidero was charged. He gets appointed to government again by Ruto. Sonko was charged. He's out. You go to his Instagram account and you can see where all the money went. Our systems are not working. Our institutions are not working. And the county governments, by and large, are not serving you. I'm just going to pick up on Makueni County because I know Kivuta Kibwana is here, and I'll speak to. I'm not here to sort of criticize the governor. He is one of the best when it comes to integrity. So I'm not here to talk about corruption in terms of Makueni, but I'm just going to point out, even when you have a governor that's good, that's decent, that's honest, Kenyans have to think about the size of our government. Here, Makueni County in 2022-2023 had a budget of about 10 billion, right? It has a population of about just under 1 million. Again, the first order of business when the money gets to that county is, which has 49 MCAs, is we take 10% of the budget and we send it to the county assembly. Okay, that money is gone; you will never see it. Then that county alone can only raise 400 million in that year in terms of own service revenue. So the whole county can only raise 419 million of its budget, which is about 4% of its budget. Okay, but we spend just 1 billion on the county assembly. So again, own service revenue is 400 million, but we're spending almost $1 billion on the county assembly. So the own service revenue itself cannot fund the county. Okay, each MCA in that county eats about 19 million shillings. So if you take the county budget and you divide by the number of MCA, each MCA attracts 19 million in cost. So I'm going to ask you, if you come from Makueni County, name me the top 5 benefits that you get from these MCAs that are eating up 19 million of your money. Okay, I'm not saying that we don't need devolution, but this government needs to be reduced. There's no sense for a county that can only raise 400 million in own service revenue to have 49 MCAs that are eating up 19 million each. It doesn't make any sense. We can be more efficient, and we need to do that. I go next to how the money is spent.
We want also to talk. Please be brief.
Sorry?
Okay, we want also to contribute kindly. You can have like 4 to 5 minutes, please.
2 minutes.
Yes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, I'm done. 2 minutes, I'm done. 2 more minutes, I'm done. And again, I'm pointing out this because Governor Kivuta Kibwana is one of the people that you don't question their credibility. You don't question the integrity. So I'm not saying that he's one of the best in our country, but I'm using this example to tell you that the issue that we need to talk about is not just corruption. The issue of the size of government, the issue of wastage is a real one. It's a real issue. In fact, I will argue that it's worse than corruption. It's bigger in size than corruption, because when you have that county of Makueni, which has a very, the poverty rate is not good, the literacy rate is not good, but these MCAs don't mind spending 11 million on foreign travel. They don't mind spending 165 million on domestic travel. they don't mind. So the governors and the MCA's cars for that year, just 1 year, I'm talking about 1 year, the between the governor and the MCAs, 344 million in cars. This is 1 year. Now, how much do you think that money could go towards building better schools, better hospitals, right? Why do we need to spend 344 million on cars of some of the most, the people that are in this office are some of the most, wealthiest people. Now, I mean, you don't get into these offices by being a pauper. So the point I'm making is this, and the last point I want to make, we can make better use of our resources between cars, between travel, and between allowances for MCAs. Makueni, again, one of the best when it comes to when it comes to not having corruption or less corruption, spent 558 million on those items, cars, travel, right? MC allowances. You know how much was spent on bursaries? 30 million. Okay, 30 million. Do you see what I'm talking about? We need to talk about this stuff. It's not just corruption. Better use of resources is something that we need to talk about, and I'll land at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bonnie, for your contribution. DK, please wait until you're given the mic. There are a number of people who are before you. Yeah, kindly wait and be asked to unmute your mic. Prof, would you like to give a submission before Real Joe?
Yes, I would like to do that. Could I ask? I have been preparing my class, but also I wanted to listen. But I thought there were some questions which maybe I could have said something little. Could Bonnie remind me which financial year he was talking about?
Absolutely. 2022 to 2023 fiscal year.
Okay, because that is, of course, a year after I'd left. Because my last year was the elections were 22, and so my last year was 21, 22. But I am not contesting. I'm not contesting that what you have explained is not a problem, because 70% of the county budgets go into recurrent expenditure. That is salaries as well as operation and maintenance. And the 30% is therefore left for development. And of course, the question of the wage bill has been an enduring question, both at the county and national levels. And we haven't solved it because it's also a political question. When it's about to be solved at the national level, people say that it will cost them elections, and government is the biggest employer. Money from people who are employed percolates, everywhere. And so that is something that has to be tackled, including the productivity of the people who work, the productivity of those who work at the county. And for example, Nairobi, Machakos, Kisumu, Mombasa, Nakuru, some of the bigger municipalities initially had more people who were already employed, and they were PP, permanent and pensionable. So one couldn't fire them. And then the functions that they were supposed to work for or in were not all the functions of the county, so that the counties, again, according to Schedule 4, had to employ new people. So there's that. You are correct in terms of if 70% goes into recurrent and only 30 to development, that's really, an issue that requires to be faced head on, including the productivity of those involved. And like the example that Bonnie gave of Kiambu, in terms of people who are really doing rent seeking in a very, if I can say, cruel way. And I worked as a minister in Ministry of Lands, and there were characters of that kind, people who really were very nasty, and sometimes felt that they were even senior than a minister because maybe they'd contacts, even high offices within the national system. But again, that makes devolution not deliver as it should, because if these people who are supposed to give services are delaying, they're asking for money, there is confusion, they don't seem to know how much even you should pay for a particular thing, and they don't care about the development that will come to the area, the jobs, even the taxes that will be paid, then those are issues that in this space and other spaces have to be focused upon. Structurally also, the MCAs get their budget directly from the from the national government. So it is not the executive which decides how much will be the budget of the MCAs. Through their county forum, they were able to negotiate so that they are not at the mercy of the county executive, just like the national level where parliament has got its own budget. So, and in Makueni, for example, we had a major problem initially when I was saying that they want, a quarter of the budget, when it was like 4.3, the whole budget, B, and they wanted 1B. And that was the cause of all the fights that we had, including even the county being dissolved and my being impeached and a shootout. When we went to a meeting, they had called to reinforce the impeachment. So those are structural issues that have to be looked at, so that a lot of the money that the counties get from the national level, own source of revenue from development partners, and so on, should be committed to the topic we are discussing about county services, delivering those county services. But having said that, I am very much encouraged by the work that Bonnie does from abroad, and the data activists also, because it's really very critical work in terms of scrutinizing how funds are being utilized, how services are being offered, and to do that in a way to make these people respond, because now they realize that there is a spotlight, there is citizen oversight beyond county assembly oversight and the national level oversight through Senate and Auditor General. But let me also say, because I listened a little to the conversations before, like the not Alfred, but the Taveta, Taita Taveta county. For many, many years, my late father, did business in Taita constituency, which is now part of Taita Taveta. And I think there are serious issues of, like was said, the park, because a lot of the land is the park. And of course, there are people who have got those big farms there. And even the mining that is done is really done, and there isn't much money coming into Taita Taveta. It gets some of the least monies from the national level. So there is really a major issue. And I think, as was correctly said, apart from the internal issues within the government, but there is the question of the park, the county getting some money so that there's a uniform policy, just like Narok and recently even Kajiado, both Taita Taveta and even Makueni, who their land is part of a part of the parks. There should be uniform policy regarding people approximate to these national parks and game reserves. But it is a fact that Taita Taveta County, from the coastal counties, just like maybe Tana River, they are extremely disadvantaged. I want to talk briefly about the pending bills. Strictly speaking, no county should have a pending bill, even the national level, because when you do a budget, you have to do a budget according to the money that you have. If you do a budget beyond the money that you have, then that is actually a crime under the public finance management law. But the reason why there are these pending bills, one, there can be a legitimate pending bill if at the end of the financial year, one doesn't get the money from the national level for that financial year, and they have already contracted people according to the budget to do work. The other reason people get pending bills is when you promise things that are not in the budget. You are excited, you go to a place, people dance for you, then they make requests, and you say this will be done in the heat of the moment, so to speak. And then, of course, there is no budget for that, and you can't find a budget for that. The other way is when you approximate what you will get from one source revenue. Like you approximate, I'll get 500. And then at the end of the year, you get 300, and you have already you had thought that you had about 500. So there you can have pending bills, and that is why people, to avoid that, they don't, even when they've made the budget, they start to implement as they see the flow of money. So that if you see that your own source revenue is coming not as much as you thought, the flow is not good, then you don't start and procure, certain projects, so that at the end, you make sure that you can only procure for the money that you have raised. And then you will tell the people that even though they've done public participation, that you will shift some of what you couldn't do to the next financial year. And finally, I think that in terms of, I think it was the agronomist who said there is no voice to protect farmers. Some of the people who are doing this work, even at national level, don't seem to have an idea. I think when he said that people must be the voice, start visiting people. If you have a political ambition, and many people should have political ambition, so that the Gen Z movement needs now to be differently expressed as well. And you visit the people, you are there with them, you're offering services, they recognize you, you say what you can do, you show what you have done before, and you endear, yourself, and you say you have knowledge, because even listening to the contributions here, people have, a lot of knowledge. Kari talked as if one was a kind of giving up. We can't afford to give up, even when things look very bleak. We cannot. This still is a country of promise, despite the current issues, and we must work towards, making it better. The people are progressive, the people are positive, to continue working together. And finally, again, it was pending bill where one lady said that the parent had not been paid for work in Machakos. And I think if one had a contract after procurement and they have not been paid, then they need to go to court. They need, first of all, to stake a claim. And then if they are not being paid still, because governments are continuous, there is succession from one government to another. And unfortunately, in some of the counties, there are people who did work, particularly in the first 5 years. Some of them were just told do work. There was no procurement. There was no contract. And then they were told that, there is no money to pay you. And actually, some of that verges on criminality. So thank you, data activist, and Bonnie, and Toria, and all of you. Please, I think this is an important conversation in terms of really making sure that services are delivered and there is data to track, and there is this insistence on citizen accountability. I yield.
Thank you, Prof, for that submission. I see, Dennis Chege, your hand is up. You say something before the real Joe goes. He has been waiting for a while.
Thank you very much, data activist. Thank you, Toraya, and the speakers panel, and everyone here. Good evening. I hope you can hear me, data activist.
Yes, we can. Proceed.
Thank you. So very quickly, are you satisfied with county services? I think, let me speak as a resident of Nakuru County. So I'll mostly just rely on the information and evidence I have in Nakuru County. Are we satisfied with the services? That is debatable, but we are definitely happy with the services of devolution so far. I am assuming that your question covers the whole, is it 12 years we've had since 2013, right? And I think this country has seen significant development under devolution, in as much as we have the challenges that we've had, which mostly are around two areas, which is corruption and mismanagement. But I think if we are able to tame corruption and wastage, I think devolution is a beautiful thing. I think devolution should be protected. And I think devolution should be something that is really defended. Because looking at what is happening currently, we have seen significant drop in, we've seen, we are not sure whether this government is supporting devolution 100%. Because of the kind of delays we are seeing on the disbursement from the revenue sharing. So you realize that some counties are almost even grounding to a halt as we speak right now, because we have not received any form of funding from the last 4 months, I think. But other than that, I think we've seen various devolved sectors have significant growth. In Nakuru County, since it's highly agricultural, we have seen what it has done in terms of interventions like, mechanization, increased input access by farmers. We have seen distribution of, for example, irrigation kits. We have seen seedlings and seeds being distribution, and the other services like extension services, etc. And for example, education, we have seen like this county government, the governor has introduced a school feeding program, and it has great benefits. I'm aware that the number of ECD children has grown significantly. We have seen an increase in over 1,500, I think, admission for new ECD students from our very rural areas in Nakuru County. And this is largely because of the feeding program. So that is very commendable. On health, we have seen how the county has tried to, support health machinery by employing quite a significant number of community health promoters who have really assisted in at the machinery level on things like immunization and whatnot. So I think overall, I would say devolution is good. I know there are many other sectors, but I don't have time to go into them right now. However, I have a question for Prof, because I see you here, and thank you very much for joining us again. For instance, today there's something that is happening at the Senate. The National Assembly has this bill, passed this bill to the Senate, and in the bill, it's called the county revenue something. I'll get the name just now, but we know that there has been a reduction, a huge reduction of, actually a reduction of 10.5 billion in the roads maintenance levy fund. And you know, a lot of this money goes to counties to support the road and improve the road network in counties, especially the feeder roads. And because I come from Nakuru County, since it's an agricultural town, a lot of our constituencies and wards heavily rely on agriculture and their produce. And so these feeder roads are very, very important. So in the same bill, I've also noticed that there's been a drop by about 5 billion.
Dennis, we lost you. Can anyone hear Dennis? Toria, can you hear Dennis? We can't hear you.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. I don't know where you lost me from. I was just giving an example of what is happening at the Senate and the National Assembly, because we have seen a reduction in money that is supposed to come to counties. And I think we need to draw a line, because I don't understand why members of parliament have such a huge role to play on matters devolution, because ideally we set up this Senate to protect devolution and to take charge of devolved governments. So I don't know how we are going to strike a balance here, because now we have seen a lot of times also there's a push and pull between the Senate and the National Assembly when it comes to revenue sharing formula and whatnot. I think, I don't know what we can do to have a lasting solution on that area. I hope Prof has heard me. I can see he's trying to connect back. But I guess that's all for now, Dr. Activist. Thank you very much, Dr. Activist, for this opportunity. But I'll hang around to the other one back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis, for your contribution. We really appreciate. By the way, Dennis hosts the Voices of Nakuru every other Thursday, and it has been a very, very good space, which other counties have modeled from. So feel free to join in. The real Joe, we have kept you. Thank you for your patience. The mic is yours.
Thank you, Data Activist. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Am I satisfied with the county services? Absolutely not. I mean, nobody would be satisfied with the county services, as we can see from the data. The data will not lie. But here are some of the things that I think are ailing us in our county governments. I think I'll speak. I can speak for two counties. This is Kisumu and Homa Bay, even though I reside in Nairobi, but I can speak for the two because those are like my home counties. These two counties, they are closely people. They are close in terms of population. I think they all have about 1.1 million residents, something like that. Maybe just a difference in the hundreds of thousands. But I think I want to just do a mixture of two. I heard what Bonnie said in terms of expenditure in county governments, as well as just a few county employees in terms of the MCAs. I'll categorize them as county employees, the MCAs, the executive, and things like that. I mean, if you look at the amount of money that is spent just within, see, Kisumu has MCAs about how many MCAs? I think about 47 MCAs, I think so. But if you look at the amount of money that is spent only on these 47 MCS in their travels, allowances, and things like that, it's a lot of money. A lot of money, almost close to what Kisumu spends in its highest development project. So there's a bit of, I don't know, an imbalance there. And I get the concern that Bonnie was raising. And that is actually the norm in literally all the 47 counties we have in our country. And the problems that we are ailing us in our country, in our county governments, the first problem lies in Article 85 of our Constitution. There is the legislative authority of our county is the biggest failure. It is the biggest failure of our county governments, because they are supposed to check. Actually, they are supposed to receive and approve plans and policies for the county governments, but they have made the governors maybe even have to dance to their tunes because of this thing that has been going around in terms of impeachment and things like that. But I have a particular problem with how the MCS conduct legislative agenda of the county governments, because I don't understand why. See, for example, Kisumu County and Homa Bay County, they are largely, as it stands right now, they are largely ODM zones. These counties, in the county assembly, you will find more than 95% or even more, way even more, are MCS from just one party, ODM. Therefore, only party politics is always play along about, because there is nothing that will always go wrong in those county governments. Therefore, that is the first failure of the legislative agenda in the county governments. It is a big problem that the governors have now to allocate even more funds to travels, to just appease the MCS, in case just to at least you have the majority on your side to avoid impeachment at the expense of service delivery. And this is the fundamental problem. All this is against our Constitution, Article 75, because let's see, this Constitution wanted county governments to be able, first of all, the county governments are supposed, and I get also the concern that Bonnie raised in terms of the amount that they raise themselves against how much their budget is and against how much they spend. Of course, we know that the counties cannot raise as much because, again, the huge chunk of tax is left for the national government. Then the national government then distributes the money to the county governments. So the county governments will always collect licenses and things like that. I have a problem when it comes to them being able to increase, because Article 75 requires county governments to be able to have a reliable source of revenue to enable them to govern. But I've not seen a county government that has substantially increased its revenue sources in the last 10 years. I mean, even just me, I start a business with 10,000 shillings. In 1 year, I mean, that business would be doing a revenue of 100,000, 200,000, something like that. It must grow. County governments have vast resources. And just from the onset when devolution came in, yes, maybe revenue sources were cut because, of course, the huge chunk of taxes, like I said, were left to the national government. But then how then do they grow this revenue? People talked about agriculture. I look at the county budgets, even just Kisumu County alone, in terms of even just agriculture. I have a problem with this thing that is in our budgets, both national budget and the county budgets. And Prof is here, can answer to that. There's this thing in our budget called NAV CDP. Most of the time, sometimes being funded even by World Bank, and also counties do budget for them. NAV CDP is a agricultural value chain development project. And Mwangi, while speaking, really spoke so much to agriculture. And for me, NAV CDP is the core of agriculture, because it is supposed to develop our agriculture from the root. I mean, from training farmers, ensuring they have the right, they are getting the right seeds, they are using the right fertilizer, they are all those conditions met, to even when they harvest, to ensuring that these crops they harvest, they get are to a good standard, and even to ensure that they now get markets for these farmers. That is a value chain program. I have a problem with that because I've done my analysis for NAV CDP, both at the national level and the county level. It is chaos. I mean, for the national level, it's even worse because most of the money they use just for meetings, conferences. They don't actually use that, and that is the problem. How much of that budget goes into actual service delivery? In most cases, you'll find less than in county governments from the entire budget, a budget of about 10 billion. If you have only 15% going to actual service delivery, then we have a problem. It is a huge problem. It is a huge problem. Article 75 requires that these counties, actually not Article 75, but I think it's supposed to be, I don't know, Article 176. These county governments are supposed to decentralize their functions in extent that these functions are efficient and practicable and practicable. But you find that we have, someone talked about public participation. One fundamental problem we have in our counties is the county, the residents of the county don't even know what is going on in their county. A county government, you see, MCA and MCA represents in a county of 1 million people, an MCA in most cases you'll find it can even be it can be interacting with the people on a daily basis and getting to understand and getting to set the agenda, because the principles of devolution was one of them, to allow communities to manage their own affairs and further their development. It is supposed to be, this devolution was supposed to bring the state functions close to your door, that you have an MCA there and you can talk to the MCA about this road, about farming, about employment, about bringing the state functions close to your door. And that is what this devolution was supposed to bring to us. But we have made county governments look just unreachable like the national government. And that is what is ailing our counties. We have to change how legislation happens in our county governments. Because yes, the Senate does the big chunk of also making laws and allocations and things like that for the county governments, but then they're doing that from Nairobi. The people are doing that from the ground at the MCS, but they have failed to do that. They're only serving their interest. That brings also the point whereby someone said it is the wrong people who have been given the mandate. So we have to now rethink. Some people have even thought of having to merge counties. I mean, those are ideas that are there. Of course, we also have to be in line with our constitution when it comes to even merging the counties and things like that. Because again, the county governments, or if we look at how the boundaries were done, of course, arguments will always be there. I have particularly also said previously that I also believe some other counties can be merged. For example, maybe Nyamira and Kisii, because I don't understand why Nyamira is a very small county, population of about 600 million people, not to demean Nyamira, but if you look at even the spending of that county, almost similar to other counties, I think at about 2021, 2022, it was generating revenue about less than 100 million. Right now it's about close to $250 million, about 200 million, something like that. But if even the people of Nyamira alone, when they're going to Kisii, they always say tunaenda town. So there are some counties that we can think of merging to reduce the cost of administration, because the biggest cost, if you look at all these things, then it is administration, operations, and maintenance, just like Prof had said. That is something that we really need to rethink. Prof talked about this thing can course, it is a political issue. It is not even a political issue. It is not. I think it is all about. It boils down to the policy and goodwill. It is always goodwill, and that is what we always. That's where the boundary is always set. When it comes to governance, the governing always sets boundary when it comes to goodwill, and that is the fundamental problem we have. We have to fix legislative authority in the county assemblies to be as competitive and to be able to make the counties prosper, to be able to formulate proper policies that are development oriented, to be able to ensure that the people feel that this administration, the state power that the devolution has brought is right on their doorsteps. That is when we can prosper as a country. Because with the county governments right now, we are not supposed to be crying to the national government. We are not supposed to be crying. Development is supposed now to be something that communities, that is the people residing in the county, are supposed to chant out their own development agenda and do what and just bring development according to how they want development run or done in their counties. So that is what I have to say for now. Data activists, thank you very much. I like the spaces that you do for the counties, and these conversations are what are going to make us prosper as a nation. Thank you very much, data activists.
Thank you, Real Joe, for your submission. We really appreciate. And I'm seeing it's really late. I really love the space, your contributions, but people need to get some sleep. Very important. So as we do our final submissions, I would like to do it in this order. Tom Boyer, who hasn't spoken, then DK, then Bonnie had something to add. Then we can go to Bonnie, then Collins. Then we can go to Toria. But first, let's start with Tom Boyer. Briefly, take the mic. Asante.
Well, thank you. But unfortunately, I'm not ready to speak. Kindly give to another person.
Okay. DK Nyabuti, mic is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to contribute, but mine is on, my issue is on the corruption. First of all, for young people, you remember that we had a lot of demonstration all over Kenya, but most of it they were demanding is jobs. Now you find that Public Service Commission, as a commission, whereby it's very corrupt, and you see this independent body which oversee other bodies like IPOA and others independent commission. You find that there is a time even the CS, who's now currently working as advisor of the president, saying that Public Service Commission is rotten because of the corrupt. If you want a job as a driver, you have to give a bribe of 100,000. If you want a job as a graduate, you have to do 500,000. If you want a job as a vice chancellor, you have to do 5 million. Currently, we have been having an issue of public interns. I'm a young graduate people who have been doing county interns, Public Service Commission interns. But you find because of corruption, they cannot afford to bribe this commission. We have over 30,000 people, and they have been rioting the street, and there is no feedback. And then you find even currently there is a motion in parliament to remove these commissioners, but the parliament has not addressed it. Because let's look like this one. IBC is a body which employs only politicians, but Public Service Commission have an effect every village, because every parastatal, every corporate of a government, they need employment. Now you find most politicians, they're focusing on the agenda, the IBC. Then they forget there's a lot of corruption in this parastatal, whereby the poor, they cannot afford the bribe. So as this struggle keeps on for young people. I know most people, young people were in the street for like 2 months ago because most of them, they are graduate and there is no job. And now the policy is they're sacrificing young people because of wage bill created by politicians. I've listened to you guys. There's a lot of misuse money for touring and venturing here and there for politicians. But you find young people, when they want to employ, you hear somebody saying wage bill, don't recruit, don't recruit. That's not fair for young people. And that's like a punishment. Now you find someone who has retired, he has eaten even retirement benefit, then he's coming back to serve in the government. While young people have graduated, they qualify, because they cannot afford that bribe, they lose everything. So let us also focus. The Public Service Commission is a very rotten. Even the CS himself, who's currently the advisor of the president, acknowledged this, and he said he's ready to even testify against it. But you find this commission, when you go there, they say they are independent. They get their mandate from parliament. And you see, Public Service Commission affect every village in Kenya. And if they are corrupt, and the way even the CS can acknowledge, which they have not disputed that corruption, there's a problem. You cannot fight corruption. And they are punishing young people because of wage bill created by politicians. That's why you find nowadays there's a lot of confusion on internship. Internship used to be after internship you get a job, but we have seen teachers internship 1 year thrown out, public service interns out, county interns are out, medics are out because of the policy of coming from Public Service Commission, whereby they don't want to recruit young people. They say wage bill, but for politicians they have all the way they can spend the money the way they want. So as a young person, I feel we have a challenge and we have a duty to mention that body. And if the MP, Member of Parliament, is here, there's a motion lying there over 3 weeks. Every time we make follow-up, we are told that it is illegal. So let's our voice be heard. Young people are crying. And this revolution will not stop unless they listen to what I say. Thank you. I don't have to talk now. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom. Please be brief, 2 minutes as we close. Thank you. Tom? Tom? Okay. As Tom prepares himself, Bonnie, please proceed. 2 minutes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I don't have much to say. I just wanted one of the previous speakers talked about the concept of own service revenue, and I don't think that Kenyans quite understand why for example, I focus a lot on it because own service revenue speaks to, in my view, it's a good proxy for the economic prospects in a particular county, and it tells you a lot about, in my view. So when I'm looking at, for example, how a government is behaving with your money, I look at own service revenue, and I also look at the size of the budget, and I look at what they're doing in other areas. For example, if I pick up a county like Migori, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I pick up, for example, a county like Migori, which has a budget of about 9.6 billion. It can only raise 400 million in own service revenue, 4%. They spent 900 million on the county assembly, so that's about more than twice how much they raised. Then they spent 924 million on travel. So I just want to stop right there and tell you why this is important to me. If you are a county and you can only raise 400 million in own service revenue within the county, but you have no problem spending 924 million shillings, that tells me that you don't have any common sense, and it tells me that you don't have any business sense. You cannot behave this way with resources anywhere outside of government and expect to keep your job. If I'm running a company and I behave this way, I spend more than twice traveling that I actually bring in revenue, I will be fired like that. Okay, but this is happening all across our counties. I pick one more county to close. Turkana County has a budget of 18 billion. They can only raise 1% of their budget. 10 years after devolution, Turkana County can only raise 1% of its budget. They spent 1.18 billion on travel, 39 million outside the country, and 1.14 billion within the county. If you come from Turkana County, I'm curious to know how you can spend 1.1 billion traveling. But that's what they did. They spent 1.1 billion traveling, and yet they can only raise 178 million. So they spent more than 5 times traveling that they spent with that they can raise within the county. Again, it speaks to lacking common sense and business sense. So when you are looking at your counties, take a look at how much they're raising internally and how much they're spending that money, because that tells you a lot about the kind of people that you have in leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And please, there's something you talked about some time back, which I would please like you to mention. Development. When we talk about development and we find people building fences and building the house for the
Yes.
speaker of the, yeah, that is not
Yeah.
development. Please speak to that.
So our counties are by law supposed to spend at least 30% on development. They can spend 30% on recurring expenditures. And oftentimes these counters, when you spend as much time and looking at this data like I do, you find out that they are more concerned with checking a box, saying that, hey, we spend 30% on development. But when you actually go down and say, what is it that they spend on development, right? Um, I am seeing, for example, I think I posted yesterday, the county of West Pokot, right? West Pokot. When you look at what they are spending the money on, it is depressing. Counties are spending money on, for example, I think it was Sierra County that spent, almost 200 million to fence the homes or offices of MCAs. They spent 160 million building more offices for these politicians within the wards. They call that development. Counties are spending 10 million to build a pit latrine. They call that development. Okay. West Pokot County spent 50 million on the governor's mansion. That's in the development. Remember, these counties are supposed to report the top 10 expenditures, development expenditures that they have, and that's where you can find out what they actually do with your money. So when West Pokot spends 50 million to build a house for the government, they call that development. That's a disservice to the people, because when you think about development, I'm thinking about a hospital. I'm thinking about a school. I'm thinking about something that's gonna make if you have a business in Nairobi and you want to expand it, um, they should be doing something to attract you, right? If you're someone thinking about a job, and you can go to Mombasa, you can go to West Pokot, whatever the county can do to make you, see West Pokot as an attractive place. That's what development is. It's not supposed to go. You're not supposed to be spending 200 million to build a fence for a politician, right? That's nonsense. So wherever you are, right, when you're asking your government how they're spending money, don't just stop at they told you that they spend 30% on development. Ask them, okay, tell me more about this development. What was it about? Because spending 50 million to build a house for a governor, that's not development in my book. When you spend 84 million to build an office for a county commissioner, that's not development. Particularly when you're doing this in a county with a 20 or 30% literacy rate and almost 80% poverty rate. We are doing a disservice to our people, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And you've said that, especially, and you reminded me something when you talked about pit latrines. In the financial year 2024-2025, kindly mute your mic, Bonnie.
Okay.
In the financial year 2024-2025, Nakuru County has set aside 10 million to build pit latrines under their education budget. So food for thought, is that development? Yeah. I see Dennis is laughing. Dennis, you're from Nakuru. You want to say something?
Sorry, I was expecting to come back later, but very quickly, I actually raised that issue with the CECM for education, and she clarified that it was not just pit latrines, it was also, I think, 2 ECD blocks or something like that. But I'll come back to that, and I'll have to do a Morara version of this particular project for the people of Nakuru County.
I look forward to seeing that Morara project. That would be interesting to find out what they mean by block, because on the document it says classroom, singular. But anyway, we shall find out. We have Honorable Kibet. Please give us your final submissions as we wind up. 2 minutes, please. Okay, he has dropped. Collins, 2 minutes, your final submission. Collins Odhiambo, 2 minutes. Toria, can you hear me? Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, we hear Toria. We haven't had a lady's voice this whole time. Toria, tell us something, boy.
I think we just continue with the same the way you were going. I'll talk later.
We'll talk later. Okay, fine. Okay. Real Joe, 2 minutes, final.
Thank you. Okay, my final submission basically boils down to, I think Bonnie Mwangi has put it into so much context on how our money in the county governments are spent. That's what I was trying to insinuate when I said actual service delivery. The amount that goes into service delivery is only the amount that directly affects the people. So when you say things like people, there's this financially, I think it was 2020, 2022, 2023, 2024, Homa Bay County had bought, as part of their development expenditure, I think they had bought a grader, just one grader, and that was just it as development that the county had done. And see, these are some of the things that the county, but you'll end up finding, that is just one that maybe I would say directly, because of course they built other things, they did other things, but that does not directly affect the people of Homa Bay County. One problem I don't understand, and I wish Prof would have answered to this, I don't understand why county governments are so much afraid to invest, to as part of development projects, initiate big projects like a plant that manufactures something. I don't know why county governments cannot do this. I don't understand, because these are the only things that can create jobs, actual jobs. These are the only things that can create jobs. We really need to think of development in terms of production. We cannot have development in terms of just building infrastructure like schools and things like that. We need to think of how, because these county governments at some point, they need to be able to self-sustain even without money from them. Because right now, if money does not come from the national government, you will hear problems at the county government. You'll hear that people have not been paid. You'll hear a lot of things. But if you look at how the money is spent, it is chaos. So at a certain point, these county governments should be able to account to the people and say, when I came into office as governor, we were collecting revenue of 200 million. We are now collecting 800 million. And we are looking at collecting 2 billion. We are looking at matching our budget in terms of, I don't see an ambitious county that has laid an ambition of matching its budget in terms of own source of revenue, because the budgets are like 10 billion, how much. I think those are some of the highest, some of the budgets. Other than I don't want to mention Nairobi and Kiambu. Are they able to match those budgets? Because when you budget, you're supposed to be able to think about how you're going to raise funds for this budget. They're supposed to think of how they're going to, from own revenue source, be able to raise money to a tune of the budget they have for that financial year. And let me land at that. Thank you very much for the space. It's very productive space. Looking forward to more county spaces, data activists. Thank you.
Thank you, Real Joe. And let me give you the actual numbers for Homa Bay, which I'm looking at in front of me. The total budget estimates for 2022-2023 for Homa Bay, 10 billion, 10.1 billion. They went up by 11% to 11.2 billion in 2023-2024. Now, you've spoken about development. Let me tell you what the development budget estimate was for Homa Bay. It was in 2022-2023, it was 3.1 billion. Then it went up in 2023-2024 to 3.5 billion. That was an increase of 13%. Yeah, but the actual expenditure for Homa Bay within that period in 2022-2023 was 2.5 billion. And it went up in 2023-2024 to 3 billion. That is an increase of 22%. So again, you've mentioned something which I've seen in most of these numbers. How they determine the budget, I do not know, because if they are spending 2 billion on development and 3 billion on recurrent or something like that, where is the 10 billion they were estimating? How are they estimating that budget of 10 billion? It doesn't really make sense, and that would need some clarification on. It doesn't add up, and I've seen that in a number of counties. I'm sure even Bonnie has seen that. I don't know, Bonnie, whether you'd like to speak to that as a CPA. Maybe you'd have a better answer for us.
Yes. I have something to say about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, proceed.
Yeah. Okay. So remember, I was talking about the fact that it's important not just to pay attention to the amount of the increase of the size of the budget, right? You need to ask yourself. It's not just looking at year to year and saying, oh, the development budget went up by 11%. That doesn't really tell you much. The question that you need to ask yourself is what they're spending the money on. So we're talking about Homa Bay, for example. So right, let me just give you an idea of what they're spending the money on. Okay, in 2022, 2023, the biggest project that they had from a development standpoint is the construction of Homa Bay Stadium. The county of Homa Bay spent 369 million on that project. Okay. And the reason I'm telling you this is, if you come from that county, you need to ask yourself, given what you know about the facts of this county in terms of literacy rates, in terms of poverty rates, in terms of roads, right? Ask yourself whether or not this is how you will spend money. Okay, so they spent 370 million on a stadium. Okay, second largest project that they had was purchase of survey equipment. The previous speaker was talking about um, spending. You're buying an equipment, okay, but you are saying it's development. Again, you need to buy equipment. I'm not saying you don't need to buy, but when someone tells you we spend 1 billion in development, if I told you that I spent 1 billion every year for 10 years, don't you expect to see some type of tangible things, but if you're spending a lot of money buying equipment and we do that over 10 years or 20 years, you're not going to see any real improvement. So the second largest project for that year was purchase of equipment. Third largest project was renovation of residential houses. Okay, residential houses. These are, for the staff that work for the county. Okay. Then the next thing that they did was they spent 21 million um, to help renovate a market. The total cost was 105 million, but the amount that they spent just for that year was 21 million. Again, so you have to ask yourself whether spending 105 million to renovate a market is a prudent decision. All of us have to make that call for ourselves. I have my problems with it, but I don't come from that county, right? And then the next item was male and female ward hospital, where they spent 19 million. So let's just think about this. You've spent 370 million on a stadium, okay? And the first real tangible thing that I think, if I was to call you guys and ask you, this is how much money we have to spend. Do you want to spend 370 million on a stadium, or do you want to spend that money in a hospital? Okay, where do you want to spend 19 million versus 370 million? I bet you 90% of you will say, let's deal with the hospital first. But your people, the leadership at that county decided to spend 370 million on a stadium. Okay, this is why you need to get involved, right? This is why we need to get involved, because when you're not getting involved, this is what happens, right? And when you don't question your leadership, when you don't talk about these issues, when you don't get involved with regards to voting, and particularly if you think that you can do a better job than these people, I am urging you to volunteer yourself to run for office. Because when you don't, this is guaranteed to happen again next year and the year after and the year after. We should not be behaving this with people's money. You can't spend 19 million on a hospital and then you spend 300 million on a stadium. That is nonsensical. It's a dumb leadership decision, in my view. And I hate to be that rough. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And you've said something. I think if we compare notes, we are going to be here a bit longer, but it's okay. You've said something about buying equipment, and this is what research has shown. My team's research has shown. In hospitals, I'll start with in Nyandarua, Embu, Nakuru, and I'm sure even other hospitals, we found that when hospital equipment is purchased, it does not come with a technician who will run the equipment. So you find, like in Nyandarua, for example, they have very good machines in the hospitals, but no one to run them. So why is that? So we did a space for Embu County, the one where we focused on Embu Level 5 Referral Hospital. And the CEC told us there was a machine which had not been operational for 25 days at the time. 25 days. And this is a critical machine. So we asked the question, now, is there a backup of that machine? Because this being a referral hospital, people are coming here to be serviced by that machine. And that machine has been inoperable for 25 days because it is missing a part. That didn't make sense to me. And then you find also, we asked, when we asked about those machines that come and there is no one technical to run the machine, somebody from the space stood up and said, he's a supplier. And what happens is that when they supply, they actually supply and offer to train two or three people to operate the machine. So it begs the question, why don't the counties accept that training? Because at the end of the day, this is healthcare. Yeah. So more questions than answers, but that is the situation. And that's just a tip of the iceberg that we barely scratched. Real Joe, see your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry, just something that Bonnie has said about the expenditure on the stadium. In fact, this project of stadium has a lot more controversy than even answers. Why? The amount of money that is that Bonnie is saying 300 million on stadium. This stadium actually, the initial contractor, because I know the contractor personally, the company that was doing the stadium, and when they were starting the project, it was actually during the former governor's tenure, Awiti. I mean, this project has had, it was by the time you are talking about this budget, because the budget Bonnie is talking about is for the current governor, this project, according to and this is something that I will need to verify maybe on the next space, maybe when we'll be talking about Homa Bay, but this is a project that has had over expenditure on it, the stadium itself. I know the contractor personally, the Somali contractor, the owner of the company that was doing the stadium. There was a lot more controversy, and I think the person who completed the stadium, the contractor, was a different one. And this just shows how we've missed our priorities in terms of expenditure. Just explains everything that Bonnie was saying. But that's something we need to dig more into that activity on the next space, maybe for Homa Bay or something like that. Thank you.
Okay. I'll bear that in mind, and we shall definitely do a Homa Bay space. Collins, are you on now? Your final remarks as we close? Okay, Collins is still not on. Dennis, your final remarks?
Thank you very much, that activist. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. I need to appreciate also Bonnie Mwangi. Bonnie, thank you very much for what you've been doing for counties. I have used your data, by the way, to discuss, to have a space on Nakuru County and to look at the Auditor General's report. So thank you very much, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Continue doing that, because with data, you can never go wrong. This is something that is verifiable. You can come back to it. So we really appreciate what all you data analysts are doing for us. But in as much as we are using data to discuss such a huge and important topic, like if people are happy with the county services, I think it is important for us to also look at the impact, the direct impact that devolution has had on communities. I believe that devolution has had a very positive impact. When you look at every sector of devolution, every department, we have seen great improvements. This is not where we were. And in most instances, you will realize that in the last 10 years, we have probably done what this country had not done since independence. So I know if you look at data, the figures they're a bit screaming, and you might feel like we are not moving in the right direction. But I believe that if every stakeholder, every Kenyan is just deliberate about ensuring that the promise of devolution is realized for all Kenyans, then I think that is a conversation we should be having. We should continue encouraging people to do what we are doing, to participate actively as citizens in matters accountability, for us to be able to put our leaders accountable, because like I've heard all of you say, and I'm sure we will agree that the biggest challenge we have under devolution is corruption and wastage. I think if we are able to tame those two, then definitely we will be moving in the right direction. I needed to say something about, you had mentioned something about equipping, for example, equipping, it's very important even as we discuss matters devolution and as we continue learning how to make our leaders accountable and using tools that some of you provide for us through data. We have other tools that we have been provided for by the government through the Office of the Auditor General, the Controller of Budgets. It is very important for us as active citizens to understand how government works. Listening to some of you, I realize that there are gaps in the information we have. There's a lot of misinformation also that makes us condemn a lot of the mistakes under devolution. It's very important that we understand before a project is done or implemented, where did it start? Let me use the example that you're all using for stadiums, whether it's in Homa Bay or Kiambu or Nakuru, it doesn't matter, because even Nakuru right now, we have a Afraha Stadium that is still under construction. But these are very important projects that the county government cannot implement without public participation. And public participation is one of the highlights of devolution, because we have seen more than ever that now our communities down from the villages and wards are involved in decision making and in matters of local governance, which is very, very important. As a matter of fact, the reason why we got to where we were on June 25th is because we have an awakening of a citizenship that are interested in understanding how government works and how their taxpayers' money is being used and whether it's being used prudently. So I think public participation is a very, very important role, and we should encourage it. We should continue and pushing for public participation, and we should ensure that it does not happen like the way it happened last week, when members of parliament were sent to collect public participation views on the impeachment of the deputy president, because we saw that members of parliament were bribing people. They brought their troops to fill those forms. We need to continue participating in these public participation forums. If not physically, we can send our memoranda as well. So we need to continue having this conversation, encourage our citizenry to understand the role they play in public participation. So for example, on this issue, of course, we cannot just put a blanket condemnation that building a stadium is not important, because it definitely went through a public participation process. So it's very important for us to understand, before a project is done, where does it start? From the executive, it goes to the county assemblies, then back to the public for public participation. Then, it goes to the budgeting process, and then now the procurement process, where they look for someone to do the service or deliver the service. And then it is awarded, it is done, and then handed over back to the public through the office of the executive or the wards, depending on how they are managing from their levels. So I think it is very important, even as we do this, let us understand how government works. When you see a stadium being built, for example, ask yourself, how did it start? Who participated and who put up their voice to say they needed a stadium? Because a governor cannot just wake up and do a project. That is for sure. A governor they don't have that kind of a power. We have the county assemblies that need to approve. We have the public to do the public participation and also give their views. So I mean, there's a lot that Mwananchi and Wanjiko's voice is needed, and we need to ensure that everyone is aware of this very important role. Let me just finish by saying that as we forge into the few years of devolution, let us pray that our country enjoys stability and economic growth, because without money, then devolution will die. And from the signs we are seeing, things are not looking very good. Pesa ni kama inapotea, serikali haina pesa, we are broke, and that means that service is going to be affected at the county levels. So as we forge into the next years of devolution, let us celebrate the milestone. Let us build on the lessons that we are learning, and also let's leverage on our efforts to steer the devolution agenda in greater heights. Otherwise, thank you very much, and those are my closing remarks. Asante.
Thank you, Dennis. And there's something that you've said which is very important. There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and sometimes they use numbers to misinform. And that's why when you hear, every time I quote numbers, I tell you where they are coming from. Yeah, I use the Office of Control of Budget reports. That's where I've been, that's the analysis I've been doing. And the previous quotes, when we were talking about agriculture, they were coming from the FAO reports. It's always important to quote, to reference your stats. That is actually an industry standard, because people tend to use and misuse stats, and in the spirit of transparency, and one needs to be able to verify what another is saying, or whether they can actually check for themselves and see whether that data actually adds up. We are human after all, and sometimes we make mistakes. Yeah. So our second last speaker before Toria goes, Honorable Kibet. Karibu kwenye mic. Honorable Kibet. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Kibet, mic is yours. Okay. If you don't want to speak, Toria, say your final remarks, and then we can close the space. Toria, go ahead.
Okay, I don't have much to say. A lot has been said. We've been listening, and I appreciate everyone who has sacrificed your time to join us here. And yeah, we'll be holding the same county spaces. I've been doing it for a while, and with data and the rest. So guys, feel free to join us. We have something going on pertaining the beloved ones that we lost during our 25th June event. So if you want to support, reach me out. I'll give you the way forward. Mi sina mengi ya kusema. And please, let's always stick to the point. Kama ni county. Let's not divert. Thank you so much, Data Active and the rest. Shukran.
Thank you, Toria, for that. Yes, we really appreciate you taking the time. We do not.
Oh, just a minute. Hey, you guys, please follow the host, follow each other so that host akifungua space ama mtu yoyote will be able to gather their teke. So kindly, it will cost you nothing to follow mtu mwingine. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And now the national anthem.